Hello everyone, I am Richard, the Dungeon Crawler. On our last adventure, we went over the Robotech role-playing game books. As you remember, I bought these first three at a San Diego Comic-Con. As a BECME player, all I wanted was an adventure module though, and on a local trip to the game store, I saw two small booklets. So did my dreams come true, and there was two Robotech-style modules? If you'd like to see these adventure modules, then step inside my dungeon. The first book is the RDF Accelerated Training Program. The book is only 56 pages, but is densely packed with information and beautifully drawn art. The book is basically an adventure comprising of training missions. There are 7 training missions, each with sub-scenarios. The book states players utilizing the supplement will be asked to stretch their character to the limits, test new, unknown, or unused abilities, and sharpen your character's skills. This might not sound like an exciting hook, but if you're a Top Gun fan, which I am, think of the Top Gun program, or maybe the training scene in The Wrath of Khan, just with Robotech Mecha. The adventure missions are split between solo missions and team missions. The Game Master even scores players with a scorecard. Full disclosure, I have not ran the full training program with all of its missions. I did take many of my favorite scenarios, and I used them on quick adventures, or I would plug them in ongoing adventures. There's a spoiler alert now. I'm going to discuss a few of the scenarios. I'm doing this to provide a sample of the adventures within. And also, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. This will help me bring new content to our community. Some of the adventure I found too basic. In section 1.11 is reaction prowess, and it reads, the recruit receives some type of hit and has to determine the proper direction and counterattack. The direction is determined by location from which he believes the attack originated from. There is an example given on how this scenario should be run. The training director would say something like, okay, your right hip just felt a blast from a laser. The recruit would say, I swing to my right and I fire a burst with my GU-11 at a 4 o'clock position. Training director would say, got him. Now your left arm has just taken a direct center shot with a 180mm grenade. I never attempted to run this scenario. For me, it seemed pretty simplistic, and I really wasn't sure how it would run. So let me know in the comments if you ran this scenario, and how did it go for your group. I think a simple design isn't always a bad thing. It gives a game master an opportunity to make the adventure their own. When I reread this adventure, I forgot about Section 3, Dual Play. This was one of my go-to adventures because it was easy to run and only needed 2 players. This scenario is a one-on-one battle, player versus player. So maybe it's not heavy on role-playing, but I found the battle exciting. In this adventure, you're provided a map of the SDF-1's aircraft carrier arms. The 2 players are placed at random locations. The players let the Game Master know their movement and tactics, and the Game Master lets them know when contact occurs. Then, the battle ensues. To me, this was my first experience with a death-style adventure. Several years later, when I played Doom Deathmatch for the first time, the playstyle reminded me of this adventure. I remember thinking back then that a deathmatch was just like the Robotech adventure from the RDF Accelerated Training Program. I don't want to go over any more of the missions because I think they're definitely worth the read, but I do like the team member scenarios. Some of the missions were you have to hold ground over overwhelming forces, or others were simply wipe out the enemy. You should be able to scavenge this book for adventure ideas. And by the way, I didn't even go over the scavenger hunt set in the Robotech world, where you have to find things like Lin Min May's album. And remember, there are no points for second place. But what I was most excited about was the Ghost Ship adventure. The cover was cool, with a Super Veritech fighting a recovery pod with a Zentradi battlecruiser in the background. This cover ignited my imagination. My hopes was that this adventure would be as engaging as something like B2, The Lost City. Before this book came out, I was running simple combat-focused adventures, nothing too sophisticated. But I hoped this book would give me an example on how to run a solid campaign in the Robotech world. The adventure takes place a short time after the final episode of the first Robotech series. At that time in the series, the RDF forces were depleted, but the armies of the Southern Cross were just starting to build up. After the final epic battle, Zentradi capital ships and human ships are wrecked. These wrecks are now orbiting the Earth in a large debris field. This junk field hides unsavory scavengers and even renegade Zentradi forces. This was a previously unknown time, so there is plenty of opportunity to adventure. Your party is told that a seemingly abandoned Zentradi capital ship has drifted close to the debris field. You are ordered to investigate the ship, look out for any human captives, and if needed, incapacitate the ship. First off, I'd like to say how much I loved the art in this book. Some are just reprints of drawings from the rulebooks, but there are a few new drawings and they are fantastic. The one with a battle pod from ground level shows how ominous they would be. There are a few that show Veritechs in action, which convey dynamic movement. The one with a battle-damaged destroid launching missiles is truly amazing. The book has 48 pages, which is plenty enough space for a good adventure, but the Game Master Notes starts on page 28. A good chunk of the adventure is pure copy and paste from the previous Robotech books. A few of the pages are needed though. You're given stats and a good map of the Zentradi ship. This info would be needed to run the adventure. But 10 of the pages were devoted to reprints of the Southern Cross. I already had the Southern Cross book, so it was a waste for me. But if players only had the first Robotech book and the Ghost Ship Adventure, then I could see the value. These players now could use the Logan, the second generation Veritech fighter, and even better, the Ajax, the Veritech helicopter. Outside of what I'm calling the filler pages, you still have about 30 pages left for the adventure. The old TSR modules had about that page count, and they did some fantastic adventures. The Ghost Ship Adventure can be played as a standard dungeon crawl. The players can sneak around a massive capital ship. The party can gain entrance to the ship through an airlock. There they can discover small sensors. These sensors are hiding energy readings, which is why the ship looks abandoned. The ship's descriptions are fairly basic. The ship is comprised of rooms that you would expect to see. The party encounters weapons lockers, storage bays, and crew quarters. There are a few interesting rooms. The party will find a room with 300 Zentradi soldiers all in stasis. If the soldiers are woken up, then they will be hostile. One of the interesting encounters is with a Zentradi soldier dressed in all black. He has 2 Zentradi maces that are welded together with a chain, and he uses this device like a nunchuck. He learned martial arts movies by watching human videotapes. This is a Zentradi martial arts movie fanboy. When I ran this adventure, I probably went overboard on this NPC. I made him pretty overpowered. I gave him Bruce Lee martial arts moves at the start of the battle, but he switched to ninja abilities. Remember, ninjas were pretty big back then. When reading the book for the first time, I was a bit disappointed. I only played TSR modules, and the good ones were much more fleshed out. This book required me to do a lot of reworking before I ran the adventure. I actually combined the Ghost Ship with one of my favorite adventures, the Isle of Dread. The party was assigned to explore the debris field. The debris field hid both Zentradi remnants and pirates, so I turned the adventure to a hex crawl with the Ghost Ship as the main dungeon crawl. Initially, both adventures weren't what I expected, but they did provide a good foundation and sample of a Robotech adventure. Thank you for watching all the way through. Please give me a like, it would really help the channel. Let me know in the comments if you played any of these adventures and how they went. Also, if you have any interest in Robotech, let me know in the comments what you would like to see next. Next up, I'm working on going over 2 of my favorite Dungeons & Dragons modules. And spoiler alert, I mentioned one on today's video. And please subscribe to this channel and you'll be notified when the next video is ready. And I'll see everybody on the next dungeon crawl.